pass or kick the ball. This game is for us all. From Seattle down toward the Keys, this game is you, this game is me. Cats, dogs, and steer, even a tree. This game is America, so sing it loud with me. College football forever. College football forever. Downtown LA, Starkville sit. 1 week you're up next, take a dip. Run the rock or let it rip. This game is America. All say, can you sing it with me?
We just stepped on her face with a hot-tail moving across her nose. Whoa, Nelly!
College football forever. College football forever. College football forever. College football forever.
College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
We are indeed beginning right now in earnest. It is another installment of JC and Morgan, powered by Advocare. Thank you so much for stopping by to the show that is on campus 52 weeks out of the year, and now in our 10th year, as that has scarily snuck up on us how long we've been doing this. And we appreciate all of you that have helped this grow into the thousands nationwide that tune in and enjoy this particular show each and every week on a myriad of platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. You see our smiling faces on YouTube and X. And if you do that, you see our backgrounds and everything else. You don't see our fearless producer, Phil Molinax, who is, as always, just doing double duty, working many shows on the Chief Sports platform. He's keeping us technically sound and providing many of the visuals that you see on our screen. That song you heard coming in, that is not another John Tesh Grammy Award-winning sports production that is composed by J.C. Shurburtt. It's not actually his voice, but it's written, it's produced, it's everything else. So when the awards do come next Grammy session, J.C. will be walking to the podium. The man you see on your screen behind the glasses, an evil genius, to use a term that was once labeled for Steve Spurrier. Round ball rock was what put John Tesh on the map. You know what that is, JC, right? That didn't even have any lyrics, and he won awards. You actually put lyrics behind your song. Thoughtful lyrics.
They, who is it? Fox maybe uses that for their college basketball broadcast.
Well, yeah, and NBC is about to go. They're going to be back in the NBA game. So guess what? Just like the old days when you and I grew up and it was Marv Albert and the czar of the telestrator, Mike Fratello. When it was, though, you knew the NBA was on when you heard da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's kind of, I dare people to not, when you listen to this show each and every week, to not have the College Football Forever anthem locked in your head for minimum 24 hours. I can't get it out no matter how hard I try. And trust me, I love it. But there are times, that I could probably go without it, and maybe an intimate moment with the wife. I don't want to be singing College Football Forever lines. That tends to maybe kill the mood. Not for me, but for her maybe. I don't know.
Oh, man.
I'd have to ask. I'm just saying, it's a very catchy
I
tune.
hope not listening.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
You
Summer.
can always. Yeah, I know.
Mike starts humming the song.
You'll know if we're in counseling what the number one subject will be when that comes. As I mentioned, we're always powered by our great friends, and we like to call our sponsors kind of our partners, really. We have a great relationship with a number of them. And, of course, glad to be joined by Advocare. This is another one of those. Every sponsor that we have on the show are products that we actually use and love. I've been using Advocare products for about 10 years. Our pickup basketball gang, which might be shrinking in numbers. We're all just one torn Achilles away from retirement at this point. But damn it, until that happens, we go at it hard. And about 10 years ago, a guy at the gym introduced me to Spark, which is all I drink in the morning. I don't drink coffee, as you know, JC. I used to drink orange juice, love OJ, but it's full of sugar. Just absolutely. So I would hit a wall every day. I'd be like, hey, everybody, good morning. And then like noon would hit, and I'd be like, I could use a nap. That's not the case with Spark. So Spark is like, it's just a bunch of vitamins and minerals, a blend of about 20 of them. And yeah, it's got some caffeine, but not too much, and no sugar. So that's what I always start the day off. I don't even see that. Mean Joe Green is blocking it. But now I also take Rehydrate, which is what I'm drinking today. You just grab the pack and you mix it with water, just like this. And before you know it, it's a little bit of sugar, but not much. And electrolytes without that salty taste of a lot of electrolyte drinks. You just put it in your shaker. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, JC. And I know Josh Pate will be ready to go at 10:30. We always love. Josh is now in an elite group because I think this is 3 or 4 times he's joined us. So we're talking like Luganbill, Brando, Wetzel. There's an elite class of guests that make 3-4 times. And Pate is there, and you've known Josh probably as long as anybody before his ascension in the CBS ranks. And he always just knocks it out of the park. Somebody on another show said, Mike, you ought to debate Josh on this and that. He's not a big playoff expansion guy. I am. But the point is, like, I don't mind disagreeing with people on issues. What I love about Josh is he's almost like an attorney. Like every case that he makes for every stance that he takes, it's very well thought out. It's a very cogent argument, and so he represents himself well. And of course, the other thing he has in common with us and everybody out there tuning in, his passion, his unbridled enthusiasm for the sport of college football. So we look forward to having him at 10:30.
I like Josh because he's smart and he has his own unique way, and just brands himself well without going overboard. And his speaker series, he's been this spring traveling the country to interview different head coaches. I've got a couple of questions for him on that, and always good to have him on. The enthusiasm he has for the game and the way he explains it is it's fantastic. And I have known him for a long time. I used to get on with him when he was in Columbus and mix it up. One time I did it in a full panda costume.
Oh, goodness.
And it was funny because I did it with the panda costume on. I think it was Halloween or something. It's 2016-ish, something like that. I'd go on for 15 minutes and we'd mix it up. And it was funny because we did it. And we just didn't say anything. We didn't even acknowledge that I had a panda costume on. And it's a funny story that actually last time I was at 24/7 Sports HQ in Nashville, everybody knew about that. And I was like, wow, yeah. I think I have a picture of it, but I forgot a little bit. But, those were the good old days, obviously, as far as, Columbus and you got your start in Columbus as well. And I was explaining on my Gamecock podcast this morning that's a great place to start. You wouldn't think it, but it's kind of the crossroads of the deep SEC, as you got Georgia fans, you got Alabama fans and Auburn fans all right there converged.
Mm-hmm.
So Columbus is an interesting place to cover college football.
Reese Davis kind of got his start there. He was a sports anchor. I've joked with Reese about it. And it's a small kind of almost like a mill town. And as I always like to say, Columbus means well. They had Olympic softball. They actually hosted an SEC baseball tournament. They hosted a SEC women's basketball tournament. They were trying to become that next hub. It just didn't take off. So now, obviously, we've got what? We've got Atlanta for football. We've got Nashville for basketball, which it should never leave Nashville. That is a marriage, a very healthy marriage, with all due respect to Tampa and New Orleans or wherever else is being talked about for future sites. And of course, Hoover, Alabama for baseball. I can debate whether or not that's the best spot for that, but I mean, Hoover's great. They do an outstanding job. I wouldn't mind seeing it being rotated a little bit like other leagues do, and try some other venues. But Hoover is a terrific host. But yeah, Columbus is just this town. It's three passionate fan bases. So when I was hosting the afternoon show, like at any moment, it's Billy the Bulldog on line 1, War Eagle Mickey on line 2, and Roll Tide Rick on line 3. Like that's really what it was, and it forced me as a host to really be on my game and know a lot about all those programs at the same time. And obviously, Josh has taken that knowledge and expanded it nationwide. So we'll talk to Mr. Pate at about 30 minutes time. Before we dive into the JC5, JC, I was thinking about this morning. Here we are now in early to mid-May. We are embarking on the 1-year anniversary of the latest realignment in college athletics, right? I mean, we had it in football, right? We had Stanford, we had Cal, and we had SMU in the ACC. We had Oregon, Southern Cal, UCLA in the Big Ten. We had Arizona, Arizona State in the Big 12, among others. And there were all kinds of concerns, and people said traveling wise, it's not going to make sense and everything else. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't. But as I look at it, like we are on the verge of, let's take the sport that I follow the most this time of year, and that's college baseball. The Big Ten will have their Big Ten baseball tournament at Charles Schwab Field. That's where they play the College World Series in Omaha. Pretty cool. Pretty cool indeed. And Oregon, UCLA, Southern Cal, they'll get on the charter. I'm assuming they're taking a charter. You could fly commercial. I don't know. But a lot of these college baseball teams now go charter. And they'll descend upon the heartland after, I don't know, off the top of my head, that's probably 1,200 miles, give or take. The Big 12 baseball tournament will be at Global Life Field in Arlington, Texas. UCF, Arizona State will descend upon the Lone Star State. Again, not exactly geographically convenient. And the ACC baseball tournament, Durham Bulls Athletic Park, really cool spot. I've called a few of these for ESPN over there, and it's right in the middle of downtown, so you can walk to all the restaurants and whatnot. Cal, Stanford, SMU, they'll load up the planes, and they'll head over to North Carolina for that. Nobody's really talking about it anymore, JC. I mean, it's kind of like we've just accepted it, that this is the new normal, and geography be damned. This is going to be what we're looking at. It went fairly well in football. Like I didn't sense that there was any high drama other than, yeah, for those fan bases, it's not convenient at all to be traveling all over the place. But for your average fan that is not of those schools, I don't know if they really cared. So I just thought it was interesting because we're about 1 year in as we finish the spring sports schedule since the massive and most radical conference realignment took place.
Yeah, I think, there was the one thing where Stanford almost had to have Clemson do its laundry because they were at Syracuse, then had to get back and then go back to Clemson the following week. And I think this, I think for baseball, expanding like the Big Ten did is probably smart. I mean, it helps that sport because you have a lot of cold weather teams. Michigan's run a couple of years ago, notwithstanding, but Oregon's been in the mix for a while. Washington's had good teams, and UCLA and SC certainly are capable baseball programs. And you add Maryland to the mix. Maryland's solid. It gives you about 4 or 5 teams in addition to your Michigans and Indianas and Illinois and whatever, cold weather team is up that year. And I think it helps that. I think with anything though, I think anytime you have something new in college football specifically, okay, it's brand new. Like you had Southern Cal fans that there was a couple of fans, they documented, they said, well, they're still going to all the road games and all that. But what happens is it gets old after a while. You get stagnant. It's exciting the first time you go to, well, hey, we hadn't played at Minnesota since the 40s. Let's go, hey, and that, Southern Cal Michigan game up at the big house, complete with the CBS introduction this year, was fantastic television. CBS does such a good job with its production and stuff, but that kind of setting with that kind of matchup was certainly great. But it's just over time, with the cost of things and all that, that's when I'm kind of looking for fans to go, it's just not like it used to be, and especially like in the ACC, especially if Stanford and Cal, two programs. Of course, Stanford has a new coach. Frank Reich's going to coach that team this year in the ACC. Those two programs had a chance in the Pac-12, Stanford especially. It's going to get old if they start going downhill, and it's just beatings and cross-country trips and things like that. They're basically kind of becoming like Rutgers at that point. And
you're forgetting their GM, JC.
Andrew Luck.
Luck.
Now,
he's literally a phone calling season ticket holders, and people are like, "This is not really Andrew Luck. Who is this dude? Like, is this Billy from the Sigma Chi house? No, this is Andrew Luck. We'd love you to buy some season tickets. Yeah, whatever, bro."
And I want to be clear about that particular position, because as with everything else these days, fans get confused. They think because Andrew Luck actually fired Troy Taylor, who I just learned used to be the Troy Taylor, the quarterback at Cal. He was one of the Street and Smith's cover boys back in 86, 87,
wow,
something like that.
Okay.
I didn't know that was the same Troy Taylor, but they canned him. But Andrew has a different, you have general managers popping up all over college sports. Primarily what they are is they got the title, but they're personnel directors. They're not the guy at Alabama. He can't fire Kalen DeBoer. He can't tell Kalen DeBoer who to hire. It's not like the pro GMs. Andrew Luck's essentially an associate athletic director in charge of football. That would be a more appropriate title, but they call him the GM. And at Stanford, where you have 38 varsity sports, and you're in the new era and you're in this new conference, hey, maybe you probably need just a football guy, and somebody synonymous with the program.
Can I give you another
to make
title?
The decisions. Yes.
Capologist.
Yeah, some of those guys are capologists.
What do I mean by that? For those who don't know, I know you know.
Yeah,
we're embarking on July 1. You're going to have the $20.5 million, 75% of which at most schools will go to football. So you've got to have somebody in there that's balancing the budget and figuring out which player makes how much, and which is why schools like Texas are front loading before July 1, spending $30 to $35 million on their payroll because they can get away with it now. But somebody has to do all the math on that, JC. And it's not going to be the head coach. They got bigger things to worry about, right?
Yeah, to a certain extent. But I mean, college coaches are the ones where the buck stops. I mean, I'm sure some are going to farm it out, but I think the day, knowing who most of these people are in these positions, the day they tell a head coach that you're not spending that much money and overrule him, is number one, the day I'm going to really start to not like the sport. I think general managers in the pro game are ridiculous at times with some of their decision making. And you see the bad franchises, and you see what a bad GM can do to you. And it takes a special talent to make it work synonymously. And I just think with the money college coaches are getting paid, which is not decreasing, that the buck still has to stop with them. We have to keep in mind, it's not pro sports. It's still developmental. It's still high school kids coming in. It's still guys from the portal. There's still thousands instead of hundreds of players to evaluate. There's different methods to where, there's just a lot going on. I agree. Coaches need somebody there that can help them navigate this. I just don't think these people should have any kind of power like Andrew Luck does, where they could just terminate a coach. And that was with cause, obviously, depending on how the whatever investigation happens. But I just don't think that. I think that's the job of an athletics director to terminate the coach, and we still need head coaches making final decisions as far as. And if the head coach screws it up, then you fire him. I mean, that's just how it goes. I mean, I do think that. I think sometimes these head coaches, if they make bad decisions and with roster building, that's part of it. It's always been part of it. Then fire them. But as far as some of these folks with the title GM telling the coach what to do, I'm against that just because I just don't think half of them are qualified to do it. I think they're good at player personnel evaluation. They probably need to be good at crunching numbers now, but as far as the operational aspects of, I mean, nobody's going to tell Kirby Smart who to recruit, dude.
Of course not. No.
Nobody's going to sit there and tell him who to hire as his receivers coach or whatever.
Right. That's why I use the term capologist, because that's something I feel like that's a stay in your lane title. Like, okay, I'm the head coach here. I'm Kirby Smart, right? I own this program, essentially. You're leasing a position to help me operate. That's what a capologist is. You're not hiring anybody. You're not firing anybody. You sure as heck are not giving me game day advice. Stay in your lane. That's what you do. And that's what a Ron Rivera at Cal, another one. Andrew Luck. I mean, you're going to see more and more of these quote unquote GMs, but you're right. I don't think that's the most appropriate title.
You got some alums too, the big time football alums that are getting this associate GM title. That's called a fundraiser.
Right.
That's called a fun. Yeah, that's called a fundraiser. So I think this too. I think that what you could see, like at Georgia, I know they have somebody that was an associate athletic director, and he kind of coordinates the cap and navigates all this stuff for all sports. And I think you could see guys like that kind of become stars, not stars, but worthy people to get on an athletics department staff, because it's really tough for an AD or what are known associate ADs to dig into that, because that's just not. I mean, your associate athletic directors are different. They're a different mindset. It's not. Yeah. They're more about fundraising, and I mean, I don't think that. I mean, they spend every penny they bring in. So, I mean, that's the mindset there more so than a cap. So, I think you could see that happen too. But it is an interesting time in college football.
It's fascinating as we embark on year 2 of a 12-team playoff that will soon expand beyond that to either 14 or 16, depending on who you believe. I believe it's time for the JC5. Again, it is JC and Morgan, powered by Advocare, advocare.com. Let's commence with the JC5 at number 1.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1.
All right, Mike, I'm going to let you play GM.
Love it.
Let you play capologist here. Would you pay a guaranteed $7 million for an offensive tackle out of high school?
Heck no.
No. I don't.
No. Under no circumstances. Again, I've only got on. Are we going to say, you know this a heck of a lot better than most? About 15 for your average like SEC level program on the payroll.
Yeah. Okay. 15 per year.
Per year. Yeah.
This would eat up roughly 20% of what you're paying out for
a
freshman.
Have to pass.
Hard pass for me too, dude.
Pass.
I mean, and look, offensive linemen it's a crapshoot. You look at the draft every year and, say there's 5 tackles taken in the first 2 rounds. Well, 3 of them were 5-star guys and 2 of them were no stars. They came out of nowhere because that position depends so much on your body and Mother Nature or God or whatever you want to call it. You don't know. I mean, Mitch Hyatt started at Clemson 4 years, was not drafted. He was a 5-star guy, absolutely a 5-star guy out of high school, but he could never put on the weight that was required to play at that level of football. So it's a crapshoot, but I absolutely would not either. That's the asking price, though, for some out there.
No, you know what I'm going to say. There's only 2 positions that can command those kind of dollars. Quarterback, the obvious. And I would even say, I mean, if you've got a Hellraiser defensive end that can just wreck backfields, change the complexion of games, a Clowney type, a Myles Garrett type, then that's I think those guys are going to be the second most valuable. But no, I don't. An offensive lineman? Heck no.
If I had a Jeremiah Smith at receiver, or I'll take it back, an AJ Green or Julio Jones from back in the day,
Yeah.
I'd probably think like Steve Winwood. I'd think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
You just need a higher love, and we all love those 5-star wide receivers.
Exactly.
Get back in the high life again. Number two.
Number two.
All right. So there's some additions to the college football playoff committee. Troy Dannon, the AD at Nebraska, is in. I don't know why they want to resurrect Jeff Long.
I'm glad.
I thought he was terrible when he did the basketball tournament. I thought he was terrible when he did the playoff. And I thought he was terrible at Kansas as the athletic director. But Jeff Long is back in the high life again, Mike, as a member of the committee. I'm with Barrett Sallee, our friend, who's also been a multiple guest here on JC and Morgan. Get athletic directors off the committee. I just don't think they're the right choice for that particular committee. Basketball is fine because you have metrics, but something so subjective as this, get the ADs off. Most of them aren't coaches; they're bureaucrats. They've never played. They don't know. I'm all for Barrett's. I guess he's kind of carrying the torch for getting them off. What say you?
That's now Barrett Sallee of the Braves Radio Network, I might add, a post that I'm familiar with. But yeah, we said this on the show countless times. There is no reason, especially to have an acting AD. The conflicts of interest are ridiculous. You saw this with the basketball tournament. You've got a UNC team that probably doesn't deserve in. You've got their AD heading the committee. But wait, no, he recused himself when they actually got in the boardroom to select the teams. Yeah, I'm sure they had no conversations. I'm sure they didn't go to the hotel bar and run up a high tab on Old Fashions and plead their case to get in as a bubble team. We know that kind of stuff never happens. It's just ridiculous. And furthermore, it's just not necessary. And that includes previous ADs. I don't need a previous AD who doesn't even have an alliance with a particular program anymore. You remember when you and I went through our own kind of panel, and we had Josh Pate, we had Pete Thamel, Andy Staples, Barrett Sallee, Tom Luganbill. Well, these are all guests on the show, by the way. Tim Brando, Tony Barnhart, who's now officially retiring, Phil Steele, Heather Dinich, Jacob Crane, Cole Kublik, Dan Wetzel, I dare say JC and Morgan. I mean, you can have people that just cover the sport. I don't need a former player. I don't need a guy that is in the NFL Hall of Fame that hasn't played college football since 1978 and probably doesn't spend countless hours on a Saturday like these other people that I just mentioned do. So, yeah, this one, as you may have noticed, is a little bit of a hot button with me. Why we insist on doing it that way. I have no problem with a committee, but you got to have the right people on it. Garbage in, garbage out.
Number three.
All
right. So a report from On 3 today states that the Dogs, we got a lot of Georgia questions in the JC5 today. This is not the last one. They got a commitment from Jared Curtis, and the report says he did not get the 7-figure NIL deal. It's short of that. He's a 5-star quarterback from Nashville, was committed to Georgia, decommitted, opening it back up. It came down to the Oregon Ducks, which, in my opinion, do have they're still doing that unlimited NIL thing out there. For now, their state government's trying to make it permanent. But, and so the article talked about the Kirby Smart discount. Now, I do know they get a discount because you look at the NFL numbers, which you pointed out last week. He's got more NFL draft picks than losses. That means something nowadays. Your thoughts about Georgia being able to kind of not have to put out the cheddar as much as maybe some other schools?
Yeah, you've talked about this a while, and it speaks to culture, right? Like the Kirby culture at Georgia is such that where they don't just have to outspend everybody. Now, don't get it twisted. And I have a extremely good source there, and you know who he is. They did spend a fair amount of money to get this kid, and had to secure almost $1 million in outside deals. So that's still like baked into the equation, even for a glitzy glamour program like Georgia. And he's a Southern kid out of Nashville. He's the first kid of this magnitude recruited by Kirby since Justin Fields. Vandergriff was a 5-star. He obviously busted. And then you remember they won 2 national titles with a former walk-on in Stetson Bennett. So they're kind of contrary to the you got to have the blue chip quarterback to win. They kind of proved that they didn't. Even Carson Beck was not a 5-star. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, JC. I don't think he was. So they went ahead and got this guy who Oregon really wanted. I have a pretty good idea that Oregon offered a little bit more. So this was not just top dollar goes to the kid, just goes whoever offers $1.50 more. But yeah, I mean, that stat, which I still think is just unbelievable. Kirby's been there 9 years. He's lost a total of 19 games. He's had 20 first-round draft picks. So they are just on autopilot, and bringing in a guy like this, they're always going to recruit defense well. And then you throw in wide receiver's been like the one position they've got a lot of misses. It hadn't been all hits.
I'm getting to that.
Okay. Yeah. So let me cut it off right there. This is, I'll just go back to one last thing. This is going to be very fascinating once this settlement comes down, and you've been talking about it longer than anybody. When that 20.5 is a hard rev share number, how much does it equal the playing field a whole lot? Or is it business as usual where the programs that have the most resources are still able to get the most in recruiting?
Number 4.
Notre Dame and Clemson have signed a deal. There's some talk as to whether or not it's going to count towards Notre Dame's required ACC games. You remember this was a mandate from ESPN almost where, hey, we want to see more big-time matchups if we're going to pay you this money, which is awesome for ESPN because they probably, frankly, could use it. But I think this is the first of several we're going to see. Notre Dame, Clemson, 12-year deal. So the Tigers and Fighting Irish will play home and home for 12 straight years per the contract. Mike, your thoughts about this? Does this help the ACC in any way, or is it just kind of like, well, they've played a lot already? So your take.
I think it's a win for the ACC. It's a win for Clemson. It's a win for Notre Dame. I can't find much negative about this. I can tell you that if you're in charge of Clemson's scheduling, you can now look for every other cupcake on the planet, because with South Carolina locked in as the finale every year, and now Notre Dame locked in, well, you've got 2 other non-conference games. You really think they're going to go and try to find another losable matchup? No. It's going to be a lot of Wofford. Going to be a lot of South Carolina State. Going to be a lot of Tennessee Tech. So get used to that. But no, this is, look, the ACC's had a rough patch here. They need some more glamorous games, and I applaud Dabo and I applaud Notre Dame for putting this together, because those are losable games. Every time those 2 teams match up, somebody's going to take an L. But this is another byproduct of, if there's a 12 to 16 team playoff, I can schedule that game and not sweat it. I can still be in great shape to make the playoffs. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it won't count towards your conference record either, as far as getting into
right.
Whatever they have, ACC championship, ACC play-in,
yes,
whatever. All right, number 5.
Number 5.
You mentioned Georgia and receivers, and that's true. I started kind of thinking about it, and I was like, through the years, when's Georgia's had talent at receiver? Don't get me wrong, but when have they had that guy that like frightens you?
AJ Green.
AJ Green, Muhammad Massaquoi was before him.
Wow.
Both those guys are from the Carolinas. They're not from the state of Georgia. You've had some good players. Don't get me wrong, but check this out. I saw a stat today. the last 5 years, the University of Georgia is 8th at receiver as far as NFL production goes. When you rank, hey, how many of their guys are producing at that level? George Pickens, who got traded today, obviously was a Georgia guy from the state of Alabama. And he's obviously had a better pro career than he did at UGA, in my opinion. But your thoughts about that, even with the admitted, hey, that's the one spot where you're kind of like up in the air. They're 8th in NFL production for the last 5 years.
It is sneaky when you're watching an NFL game, and I watch a lot, and I call a fair amount where it's like, oh, yeah, he did play at Georgia. Because even the guys that are producing at the next level have either checkered past at Georgia, getting suspended, getting in trouble, or just guys that underachieved at Georgia. Now, there's also injuries. I want to add that to the formula. But yeah, for the most part, it's not like they're settling on 2 stars, other than Ladd McConkey, who turned into a great player, was not a big-time recruit. They get some big-time recruits, but for whatever reason, they're not ultra-productive at Georgia. And there's a long litany of factors for a number of players of that magnitude. But they haven't had like the A.J. Green, who signs as a blue chip and goes right in there and lights it up for 3 years, and then first-round draft pick, and then lights it up in the NFL. They haven't had a Julio Jones type career. They just haven't had many of those, which makes their success that more amazing. Because when you look at Alabama's run on national titles, Clemson's 2 national titles, Ohio State's, they all just have ridiculous freakazoid wide receivers that cause matchup nightmares and are ultra productive. That's a big part of their success. For Georgia, it's been more about defense, number one, quarterbacks that make plays but also manage the game, dare I say. And then, you had, obviously, they always love throwing to the tight end over there in Athens, and Brock Bowers was tops there. And then they can always run. They can always run the ball. That's baked into their DNA. So, yeah, it's a little surprising, JC, but I have to think at some point that's going to change. I have to think at some point a Jeremiah Smith is going to land in Athens and is going to be the nightmare matchup that a guy like that is going to be for just about any secondary in the country.
Agreed. All right.
That concludes it. The JC 5, the Josh Pate 5 and 10. Who knows how many things we'll get into with Mr. Pate State himself on the other side of this timeout. It is JC and Morgan, presented by Advocare and Advocare.com. Stay tuned. More coming up after the break. Mike here for our friends at MG&A Wealth. It's never a bad time to have someone on your side for all your financial needs. You need a trustworthy partner who has a true understanding of your situation in order to help you with smart and practical solutions. Since 1984, MG&A Wealth has helped their clients manage not just their wealth, but their lives. Today, as a nationally recognized wealth management firm, their team of pros remains dedicated to serving your best interests with an emphasis on personal attention and customized solutions. MG&A Wealth has clients all across the country, and they all get results. Don't put it off any longer. Call our friends at MG&A Wealth at 954-289-9000. That's 954-289-9000. MGAwealth.com is the website. They do more than manage wealth. They help manage lives.
Blow on energy? Struggling with inflammation and poor digestion? Try Encapsulate 6 Mushroom Blend and get back in the game. Our blend is specially formulated to promote overall wellness and maximize health benefits using 6 powerful functional mushrooms. Our science-forward approach offers the most potent and bioavailable mushroom supplement on the market, backed by third-party testing to ensure safety and efficacy. Order online on Amazon or encapsulateusa.com today to start your journey to better living. Enter promo code JCM for $10 off.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
This is JC and Morgan on the Chief Sports Network.
College football forever.
It is JC and Morgan. We welcome you back in just a couple moments' time. Josh Pate will join us here on the program, friend of the program. We're powered by Advocare, Advocare.com, also by Nest and Wild Mattress, the most comfortable mattress on the planet delivered to your door. It's just that easy. Go to nestandwild.com, a local company based in Tupelo, Mississippi. It started with a guy and a dream, and that dream has helped out thousands of people have the most comfortable sleep that they have known. Go ahead and go to nestandwild.com. Tell them you heard about it on JC and Morgan. He is JC. I am Mike. Our producer is Phil Molinax, and we welcome you to another installment of JC and Morgan. We just wrapped up the JC 5. We've got Josh Pate getting off a phone call with a meeting. Yeah, Josh is big time now, JC, as you continue to be the crown maker that you are, the kingmaker that you are. You've turned this into a juggernaut that is Pate State.
Josh has done, and I talked about this earlier today. He's just a guy that's a self-builder, I like him because he's intelligent. You don't hear the same stuff you hear from everybody else out of Josh. And he always has deep thoughts and reasons why. And even if you don't agree with him, he will tell you why, and he'll do it in a creative, dare I say, poetic manner when he's delivering, because he's got good stuff. I mean, his speaker series, like I said earlier, he's been traveling around talking to different coaches. Good questions, great conversations. I mean, you just can't get that everywhere these days. I mean, there's no offense to anybody else that covers the sport, but it's unique, and in a cookie cutter world that we live in, overall period, I value uniqueness over anything else. And he's certainly done that. And, just being intelligent about the game and living it. That comes through. It doesn't always come through with everybody. Just an FYI. That's why our audience should always consume what Josh Pate puts out. Never mind that he works for the 24/7 Sports Network, and I have an interest in that. An interest in that network doing well. But yes. He's certainly really good at what he does. So
he's also a storm chaser.
Yeah, when we were talking about Twister the other day, I thought about Josh.
It's hard. Yeah, because I stumbled upon that obsession. Remember, we were just talking about movies, doing a Five or Dimer segment, and I didn't realize that he was obsessed with tornadoes. So he is like the Helen Hunt character in Twister. And that movie was just on, and we did the Five or Dimer last week, and we put that on the list. And it got me thinking too, and that's a Ben Franklin for him. It's a fiver for me. It's solid. When it's on, I'll give it a glance. I don't go out of my way. It's not going to win a face-off against something like Casino or, Heat or Wedding Crashers type comedy. But if there's nothing else on, yeah, Twister it's got a place in the Q box. But it got me thinking about Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's in that movie. The first time I ever saw Philip Seymour Hoffman was, not Dead Poets Society. Hello, with Al Pacino, won an Oscar. Hoo-ah.
Son of a woman.
Son of a woman. He played like one of the kids, Chaz, I think it was.
Chaz.
Something like that.
Perfect name for a preppy Philip Seymour Hoffman character.
Right. And you could tell already there, like he was good. But I didn't know just how good, and I was looking at it. Like 25th Hour, underrated movie. That's a fiver. He's in that with oh gosh, it's a really good cast. You've got Ed Norton. This is peak Ed Norton, and the guy that played Roger Maris in the movie 61. And they play three guys in New York that have nothing in common, but they all hang out. And he's really good in that. And of course, you know how I feel about Boogie Nights. That's a dimer plus. That's a dime piece and then some. And his character in that is just is freaking outstanding. And then in Moneyball, okay, playing Art Howe.
Art Howe.
It's a little bit of a stretch. I don't know if Art Howe was that much of just a guy you just walked all over the way Hoffman played him. He was great in Capote, even though that movie is not my cup of tea. He was great in Almost Famous. That's a fiver in my mind.
Yeah.
Magnolia.
Magnolia was underrated.
Underrated. That's another PTA. And I think we got Josh. So we'll get his thoughts on Mr. Hoffman, among other things, as we welcome in now into JC Moore. Don't ask me how we got onto that, Josh. Oh, we were talking about Twister.
Yep.
Which obviously is a special movie for you. We know that's not a fiver or a dimer. That's a Ben Franklin for you.
Sure.
You probably watch it on the regular. And it got me thinking Philip Seymour Hoffman, who passed away 11 years ago, and I'm still having a hard time wrapping my arms around that. But favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performance or performances?
So you mentioned Twister. That has its own special place for me. I assume you mentioned Almost Famous.
Yes.
I would be remiss if we did not mention the dynamite work he did in the blockbuster hit Along Came Polly.
Let it rain.
The basketball scene alone was awesome.
And when he has to moonlight as the lawyer, and he just sits there when he doesn't know what to say, he just
and the performance of Jesus Christ Superstar, right? He does.
You remember? Yes, Sandy Lyle, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes, Sandy Lyle.
Do you guys remember the remake of Manhunter they did called Red Dragon?
Never saw it. I do remember.
People trash it. I thought it was good. He was in that as well. He played a reporter who, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it's not a great ending for him. But yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman is on my Mount Rushmore of something. He's on my Mount Rushmore of life.
Yes. And Scotty and Boogie Nights, which for me is one of the most rewatchable movies ever made. And even though he's a pretty dark and disturbed character in that movie, he plays it just to perfection. We lost a good one. We lost. Yep.
I'll say one thing. And Josh, there's probably very few left around the 24/7 sports offices that would remember these days, but some would say that Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance in Charlie Wilson's War reminded them of one Joseph Christopher Shurburtt in the early days of 24/7.
I've heard that comparison made. A lot of the trade magazines said that. I believe it was actually either Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert who made that quote famous. I think they're the ones who first made that comp.
Yes. No doubt. Just again, they don't make many like him anymore. They really don't. With that,
you're not even encouraged. You're not even encouraged to be like him anymore.
No, because everything now is action figures and superheroes. So if you're not wearing a cape and doing silly things in funny-looking underwear, then it's not a popcorn movie. It doesn't make a ton of money. So the type of movies that the roles that he would gravitate to are not movies that make a lot of money, and so sadly, it's not there. We could do a whole show on where Hollywood has gone, but I digress. Josh, as we talk about on this show all the time, there is no off season. We use the slogan, we're on campus 52 weeks out of the year. You almost take that to a literal level. I know you've been doing your series with coaches one-on-one on particular college campuses. Give us some of the names you've had a chance to speak to and maybe some of the things that stood out in those interviews.
Well, I'm pulling up a doc right here. I can tell you who we've spoken with. We just did Texas yesterday as I'm speaking to you. So Sark is the freshest in my mind. I really think that's one of the best ones we've ever done. He's just sharp, man. When you get Sark on a good day, he's just sharp.
Yeah.
And he's pretty open. I don't know. You guys know as well as I do. Sometimes there are guys out there, and there's nothing wrong with this, but when they speak, it is football. Then there's another kind of guy who speaks as a football coach, but his words apply so further across the board of life than just football. Steve Sarkisian's one of those guys. I think, the entire video is up on the channel right now, but that was 45 minutes that felt like it went by in 10 or 15. Ryan Day last week was as open / comfortable / honest as I've ever heard him, which makes sense because even he said, I have the benefit of the doubt now. You can kind of say what you want. You can do what you want. Now, since you're a national championship winning head coach, it all makes sense. You like it's yeah, of course you would do it that way. Of course you would say it that way. But that was fun. Kirby's always really good. DeBoer, year 1 to year 2 at Bama, noticeable difference there. And the fun one we did 2 weeks ago was Rich Rod at West Virginia, because I had not even been to the state of West Virginia before, much less to the university. So we went up there, and man, it was like being around a homecoming, but it's just the middle of May or late April, I guess, when it was. But that was really, really fun combo.
He was you could tell. I've seen some of the clips of that one in particular, and I've told this story before. I had an Ole Miss game when he was the offensive coordinator, which lasted like a year. This is going back to the Matt Luke era, right before Lane took over. And Rich Rod was still a name, obviously, and still loved dialing up plays. But I've never seen him really more miserable, because the whole time he's thinking, damn it, I am head coach material. Do you guys remember what I did at West Virginia? Okay, looking back, I probably should have taken that Alabama job, but I still know what I'm doing. I'm qualified to be somewhere higher than I am. And I don't mean that he was being overly arrogant about it, but you could just tell it. That's his calling. So to see him back at West Virginia, to see his new kind of enthusiasm for that role again, I think it's a perfect fit. I can't wait to see how he does there.
I think so. I also think there are a million different reasons why guys end up where they are. Sometimes it's football. Sometimes it's things beyond football, and everyone's human. You could tell with Rich Rodriguez, at least I could tell, those years he spent, whether it was as a coordinator or he was down at ULM or he's back at Jacksonville State and all that stuff, you could tell many, many people at the Power 4 level knew he was still qualified, knew he was still capable, but then they also knew, I don't think I'm going to be the one that hires him. But I hope no one else does. I don't want to compete against him, but I don't know that I'm going to be the one who hires him. And finally, West Virginia said, wait a second. We already did once before. Of course we could hire him again. And there he is.
Yeah, there he is. The Sark interview, I don't know how deep down a rabbit hole you went with his past. Did you touch on all the things that obviously that he had to battle through with substance, with alcohol and everything else, and how telling was that? How much did he offer up in the way of, getting out of that hole when a lot of people thought his career was dead and buried, and now where he is?
Mike, I know that, yes, to answer your question, yes, we brought it up, and yeah, he talked about it. So, but think about this. The further removed you get from the past, the more and more it gets, I don't know, like put in sugar cube form, where it's nice and compact and you can say it in one sentence, but that's really not the way life works in the moment. If you really go back, you and I lived through it, but if you're like 19 years old and you're in college and you're a huge fan, all you know is, oh man, Sark had some substance abuse issues. Go back and like live through it. The reports of the state he would show up to work in at Washington, the way it flamed out at USC, and how much he had to climb up from rung 1 of the ladder before and be helped onto rung 1 to all the way where he is now. It's just amazing. So to me, the purpose of that kind of sit down is not so much to just get a guy to rehash his past. Like, I want to get some substance out of it. So what I asked him was, how open are you about that with your players? Because you got to think, any guy who's getting recruited to Texas, if you're going to negative recruit against Texas, you can't outspend them. So what you're going to do is you may trash the coach. You may speak ill of his past, of his reputation. And so I asked him, how do you combat that? And the only way to combat that, I would imagine, is Just be open. Just be honest about your past. And man, he took that and laid out exactly how he explains himself and his past to his players, how open he is about it, and how much he says, since you can't change the past, and I wouldn't if I could because it's made me who I am now, I actually try and use it because I'm going to ask every one of these guys to overcome adversity and to put your past behind you and build on your mistakes and all that. Well, you could either show them a motivational video or just use yourself and use me, the man in the mirror, as the example. He went in great detail about that, more than I even asked for him to. I think it was really, really eye-opening. I don't care if you don't like football; it'd be worth a listen.
Yeah, he's extremely likable. If you ever have any interaction with him, the one time I did, like he's just there's something about there's some coaches always have their guard up, and it just makes for an uncomfortable exchange. We've all dealt with that. That's not Sark at all. And I'll throw this at you. This is a topic within a topic. I look at Texas now and the malaise of a watered-down Mac Brown toward the end, the Charlie Strong debacle, the Tom Herman debacle. That was your time to get Texas. With Sark, who for my money is as good a play caller as there is in college football, with all the advantages that Texas has always had, but for whatever reason has not flourished with. We went through the Nick Saban, Alabama is king era. We are still somewhat in the Georgia Kirby Smart is as good as anybody in the SEC era. I'm not going to be surprised if Texas takes over that mantle at some point with Sarkisian. You think that's a crazy take?
No, it is my take. And
okay.
So he made this point, actually. He wasn't excuse making. He was actually speaking in another context, but he said this. He said, when I was at Bama, I watched the way the teams played, and it perfectly reflected the head coach. It was almost like militaristic in the discipline that the Bama teams had. Well, that was Nick Saban. He just does the same thing every day, so it was no surprise. The team was rinse repeat every day in the way they went about their work. Georgia's been like that. Kirby's been there for a decade now. Ohio State has the identity of Ryan Day. Ryan Day's been there for a long time. And the point he was making was this year, like this team, that's the first wave of fourth-year guys that I recruited and that we've totally immersed in this program, and they've known no other way other than our way. So those guys have had multiple waves of their guys be third and fourth-year players. We're excited because now we get to have our first wave of strictly our guys, and that's really when you find out whether what you're preaching and what you're putting into practice is worth anything, because you get to measure it against the other big boys. And Mike, I don't know what's going to happen with the house settlement or with revenue sharing, but I do know this. In a world where money is a factor, Texas is never not going to be in the sweet spot. Like from this point moving forward, the shape of the sport is never not going to be conducive to Texas succeeding. So if you've got that, that means all the intangibles that are out of your control are set in your favor. So the stuff that's in your control, if that's the guy running the ship, I have a lot of faith and confidence. It's the program I'd buy stock in more than any other program in college football right now over the next 5-10 years.
Agreed.
I ask you about Sark's old school, SC Southern Cal. You were out there. The outside perception is they're in trouble. Lincoln Riley, they're obviously recruiting very, very well. I think going into a line of scrimmage league last year hurt them a little bit. I love their defensive coordinator, Lynn. Your thoughts on the Trojans and kind of, I don't even know if they would fire him if he goes 7-5 again this year, but you kind of had an interesting inside take and your thoughts on Lincoln Riley and the Trojans.
Yeah. So this time last year, we went down to Florida when there was a similar buzz. It was hot seat, programs trending in the wrong direction. Napier's probably on his way out. And I remember hearing all that. I didn't necessarily even disagree with it, by the way. But I went down there, and when you have that kind of external vibe, what you expect, And what I've typically experienced is when you go inside the program, it's kind of a lot of searching and reaching and we're experimenting here and there. But there's not like a singular vision. You don't have just troops marching in the same direction the way it feels like when you go to the big boy programs. Well, Florida didn't fit that. Florida was very surprising because when you got behind the curtain, it felt just like Ohio State or Georgia. And it made you think, wow, these people seem to have their act together. Wow, they all seem to be moving in the same direction. Wow, it feels like they should be coming off a playoff appearance with how resolute they are in their values and principles. It's crazy they've been losing. And what Napier would have you believe, and what he told us last year, was our way will work. We just need time to make it work. So then they started leveling up a little bit this past year. Now they've got high expectations for this year, so we'll see. And then we bookmark that. The reason I bring Florida up is that's exactly how it feels at USC right now, JC. You go in there and you would think 3 consecutive years of regression in record. And there hasn't been a staff change. Like Riley's been there all 3 of those years. You would think they're a program searching. And yet when you go in there, they are as confident as Ohio State folks are about their processes. Here's the difference. Riley knows, I think he knows, he screwed up hiring on one side of the ball at the outset. It's no different than Fickle at Wisconsin right now. You get the job, you're the right guy for the job. You just you don't hire correctly on one side of the ball, which just means in year 3 you have to hit the reset button, and by year 4 you're asking for patience in a world that has none for you. So the general manager is the one getting all the headlines right now. But you said the defensive staff changes a year ago. That took them from the 100s to the 50s in overall defensive production, and I expect another fairly quantum leap this year. But I asked him when we did that interview, I said, all this confidence in this building does not match the external vibe. Externally, people got a lot of question about you and people doubt the trajectory. What would you say? I did the classic, what would you say to that person? And he said, among those things, he said, I'd ask him, did they watch our games last year? We're not out there getting blown out. We got 1 possession losses, which means we don't deserve to win those games. But it also means in the state of program terms, we're not miles and miles and miles away. We've made the changes we think we need to make. And then he spoke in just absolute definitive terms. It's going to happen. Our way will work. What we're doing will pay off. And sort of you'll see. And I got to tell you, I don't know if it's this year, but I'd bank in the next couple of years on them returning to viability status. Does that mean a playoff team? Does that mean winning the Big Ten? I don't know. I just mean a team that you have to factor in at the very least. Well, like Penn State. Penn State, you've not picked to win any national championships lately, but you've known they're going to be a factor. At the very least, I think Southern Cal will return to being a factor.
How about you, Deontay Lynn? If you are a defensive coordinator at UCLA, not known for defense, and you are also a defensive coordinator at UCLA under a coach that is an offensive coach in Chip Kelly, and you do what he did there, to me, that's a great coaching job. And so when they took him, I was like, well, I think that's, and like you said, massive improvement. It's only going to get better. It does take some time on that side of the ball when you've had some issues. So I'm with you there. I think I'm not surprised at the confidence, and I do expect them to. And you're right, man. That's so many of their games. Maryland, my gosh, Minnesota, Penn State was a 3-point game.
Oh, it was a classic game. That
was a great game.
That's October 12th. That is who do we have? We had Ohio State, Oregon that day, which was a classic. We had Penn State, USC go to overtime, classic. That's the same day that Ole Miss did not trail for 1 second against LSU in regulation and still lost the game down in Baton Rouge. So that Saturday delivered last year. That's 5-star Saturday.
Alabama played South Carolina that day too.
Oh my goodness! They had me doing a live hit at Autzen Stadium, and you get Mike. You do this all the time in the booth. You've got your camera, and then you've got the feedback monitor down here where you're watching the feed of the game, and you got to go live when you're scheduled to go live. but no one cares about your take on a game on a network other than what the live game's happening on. So we're watching, I'm live with like Cardale and Danny and them on CBS. And all we're doing is sitting there watching a monitor on live TV. And when that game's happening, that South Carolina-Bama game, there were like 3 different jaw-dropping moments. I can't believe this is really happening moments. How different does that season pan out, by the way? You give Carolina the LSU game or the Bama game. How different does that season pan out?
Well, they're in the playoff.
But they're in Atlanta too.
Sure.
If you went through the tie, it would have gone to the 6th tiebreaker with Georgia, but because South Carolina had a big win over A&M 24-21 and the 26-point Oklahoma, it would have gone to like score, I guess, margin of victory, and they would have gotten to play the Longhorns. So that was, you didn't think it at the time, but those were tough ones for the Gamecocks.
That might be a good segue. I always like to ask you on this, and as I said in the before you were on in the intro, what I love about what you do is that the great thing about college football, none of us are going to agree on everything. It'd be boring if we did, but you always make a compelling case for every kind of strong opinion that you have. So where am I going with this? You are our good friend Barrett Salee, who's been on, a few others. I can't remember everybody off the top of my head. Let's just say a little bit resistant to the college football playoff expansion, right? So, I mean, we just talked about an example of a game that wouldn't have meant nearly as much if we only had 4, the old school 4. We're clearly not going back to 4. If anything, we're going from 12 to 14 to 16, what have you. Have you softened your stance at all on the playoff expansion, and what do you think it's done to college football?
Soften my initial stance, no. Part of, you'll remember, because we talked about this on this show, what was baked into my stance was I don't think it ever stops at fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. I never thought that you could just get a nice, neat, tidy bow on one expanded playoff and it never change again, which we're seeing play out right now. Now, this will probably surprise you. Actually, a lot of people will probably disagree with me on this stance as well. All right, so if we wipe the past clean, like you said, we can't go back, and we have to just accept today moving forward. Both of you and the audience have listened to a lot of these proposals about the format of the next expansion, whether it's 14 or 16. The big argument out there right now is, should a league like the SEC have 4 automatic spots? Should the Big Ten have 4 automatic spots? Now, you're looking at the guy right here in the black T-shirt in the middle of these two that was totally opposed to any kind of auto bid structure ever. For the longest time, I was opposed to it. Given that we're already here, I actually think moving forward, that auto bid structure makes more sense if you're someone like me, because what I want is I just want maximum focus on the regular season, and I would love to have maximum focus and emphasis on conference games and conference races. And so in lieu of just playing the whole who's in game every week, and in lieu of me gluing myself to a TV every Tuesday night to watch a committee tell me what the rankings are and then project from there, what I'd love to do is already know how the structure is built, and therefore know that it's the Big Ten standings that will decide everything. It's the SEC standings that will decide everything as it relates to that conference. So I have totally inverted my feeling on one front, and that is the auto bid structure. Because since we're here, I actually think it makes more sense. The one hang up to that argument is, if everything's going to be based on your league standings, what incentive do you have to go over the cliff in out of conference games? What consequence is there to losing out of conference games? Now, that is a valid pushback if we're going with the format that they've laid out. My one pushback, and if you want to just go full black helicopter, tinfoil, beyond the pale future of college football, Mike, JC, what if we had a world where the top 6 teams in each league were not merely decided by the league standings, What if those leagues all had their own committee, the SEC committee, the Big Ten committee, and those committees were charged with basically producing the top 6 or the top 4 at the end of the season? And what I'm saying there is it would account for the differences in strength of schedule within conference, because Oklahoma and Missouri play light years different strength of schedule, even in SEC.
100%.
And also, it would mean it matters whether Oklahoma beats Michigan or not. It matters how Alabama does against Florida State, not in the league standings, but in a sense that if you go to Tallahassee and Kalen DeBoer and company lose 30-6 on opening weekend, a committee is going to factor that in down the road instead of just saying, hey, luckily for them, it wasn't a league game, so no one cares.
A conference committee, in other words, the SEC would assign the people that determine which SEC teams get the automatic bids.
Well, what they would do, to my understanding, the way this is going to work is if the SEC's got 4 playoff spots, the way they want to do it is take 1 versus 2 and put them in the league championship game. And then 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5, and those are play-in games for the other 2 spots. What I'm saying is, if that's the structure, whatever, you already know my feelings on all that. But if that's the structure, the way that you decide those 6 teams within the league before you ever press go on that Saturday in December, I'm just saying I would like a little bit of oversight on how that 6 gets seeded. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
With that, I don't know that a dude, you want to talk about political.
Oh, it's wonderful.
An SEC football committee. Oh my God.
Get the bomb squad ready.
Good Lord. I think you're onto something there. And I'm in favor of the play-in games if we go to auto bids. I just think, more access or whatever. But, high school football in some states, they use a point system. In other words, based on strength of schedule, because that's the big workaround. Even with I think a play-in situation would help resolve some of that, because obviously, like last year, Tennessee would have played South Carolina, Alabama would have played Ole Miss. Tennessee had a much weaker schedule than everybody else. Well, you got to go beat the Gamecocks on a neutral field if you're going to get in the playoff, because you have. I think that would solve a lot of it, but I also think there's something to be said for adopting a point system. And hey, you play a Power 5 out of conference, that's another point for your win. And then that determines the top 6. Just like in high school, you get points for so many wins over bigger schools and things like that, because it's based on resources,
So I don't have a problem with that if, like a lot of these Power 4 conference commissioners are saying, we properly define strength of schedule. Because if we have some model where Mike goes and plays Wake Forest and JC goes and plays Clemson, and you both get a point because they're Power 4 teams.
Right.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But here's the problem there. The only other alternative to that is bringing in more of a Vegas power rater, like odds making kind of voice to say, hey, here's how we would shape this. Like, here's how we would view all these teams, neutral field. And therefore, here's how much credit you should get for beating that team or for playing this team. And that gets really murky, because no matter how much sense it makes, and no matter how much difference there is in defining the power of a team versus, defining who gets in based on who would be favored. Like, those are two entirely different things. You would never be able to explain that to the public. All the public would hear is, gambling has now proliferated the selection process, and it's all gone to hell. That's all people would hear.
I'm going to put my tinfoil black helicopter on here into the equation. First off, the human beings are always going to have the final say and should. I don't want a BCS-like formula spitting out things, and that's the gospel. Josh, you'd be happy to know we've put you in our own JC and Morgan 12-person committee, no ADs, no football players that retired 30 years ago. It's the likes of you and Luganville and Thamel and Staples and Dinich and Kublik and Wetzel. You get it, okay? That should be the final line. But I think we can learn something, and before anybody says, those are different sports, I know basketball's different. But basketball does have a thing called the net.
Right.
And it's not perfect. No computer formula ever is. but it's pretty damn good at determining the difference between, for example, an SMU's schedule and quality wins versus an Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina's. Like, if you have something like, they have to come up with something like that. We use it in every other sport, but we really don't have it in college football. And no, I'm not talking about the Sagarin ratings from 30 years ago. I mean something that's truly based on merit and based on strength of schedule, quality wins, bad losses. This is not that hard. And at least have that as a guide for the new and improved 12-person panel committee, and so that they can spit out the right names. I certainly think we are going to the expanded AQs. I said that the moment if the SEC didn't get that fourth team in, you watch Sankey and Petiti are going to change the way this thing is done and change it radically. You will see more automatic bids for those two leagues. That's happening. But we still are always going to have at-large teams. At large, and if we're trying to say the difference of even the automatic qualifiers, well, who gets the 3 versus the 5, you got to have just a logical data measurement to make common sense comparisons between teams that, yes, have the same record, as JC and I like to call it, caveman logic, unga bunga, 2 losses, fewer than 3, therefore 2-loss team better. No, that's not accurate at all. It's just stupid beyond belief. But that's how we're doing it right now with this playoff committee.
You know, they've got it already baked in-house at ESPN. Bill Connolly's S&P Plus statistic,
yeah, he's good,
is about as good a product out there that's not, gambling centric, so you avoid that stigma. It's already there. And I look at those numbers every week, and I do my own, and his virtually mirror mine every week anyway. And even if they don't, there's like minor difference, but all we're looking to get is a broad stroke definition here. Like you said, we're not looking to hit a bullseye from the moon. We're just looking to know that, hey, let's make more sense out of this team that's 10-2 because they didn't play anyone rated in the top 80 in the country. It might not be the same 10-2 that Florida just ran off in the SEC per se.
Right. Let me ask you this. It's hard to do a show like this and not talk a majority. I don't care. I mean, we're all in the South. Well, I mean, JC is on loan in Chicago, but he's a true Southerner. We know that. And he'll be back before long, trust me. But even if we were all based in Chicago or Indy, the dominating teams in terms of conversation, when we talk about college football, are and are going to continue to be SEC teams, Big Ten teams. I see that gap widening. I know there's revenue sharing on the horizon and the settlement case and everything else, Josh. And part of me hopes I'm wrong on this. But when I look at the financial gap on TV revenue alone between those two leagues and everybody else, it's going to be really hard for this not to be a conversation, with exceptions like a Clemson, like a Florida State, if they ever get their act together again, where this sport, the focus of power is really becoming narrow in scope. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, of course I do. I don't know how you disagree with it.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there trying to format a 52-week per year, multi-time per week show, and my spirit is that of believing college football should be coast to coast, and it should be very, very regionalized. But it's not that right now. So when you stack your show, you still stack it with the old school mentality of, oh, we're way too SEC heavy tonight, or we're way too power team heavy tonight. There is no alternative right now. There's just no if you want to serve your audience, I'll put it that way. There's no alternative. So I've got a much more 50,000 foot belief, Mike, that probably the end game that's been on the forefront of the mind of the power conferences, the Power 2 for a while, is we know where we're ultimately going to get. Now, the road may be windy. We don't know the exact route we're going to take, but ultimately we're headed to a world that is very much akin to AFC, NFC. It's just Big Ten, SEC. Now, that sounds terrible, and it's certainly not preferable to the alternative that used to exist. But what that may afford us is a world where your SEC and Big Ten have swallowed up what is the ACC, have swallowed up what is the Big 12, have swallowed up basically all the value properties in major college football. which at that point just allows you to do what the NFC and AFC already have structurally in the NFL, and that is to divide yourself right back up into subdivisions. In college football, I would encourage an adherence to history that if you do that, there's no need to change names. You go right back to having the Pac-10. You go right back to having the Big 8 or the Big 12, or you go right back to having the ACC, whatever you want to call them, because frankly, I don't know that a Wake Forest fan cares what the ACC is a subsidiary of, as long as the aesthetic version of college football is much more in line with what it should be and what it used to be. And as long as media rights revenue distribution flows more evenly through the sport because of affiliation with one of the big two, at the end of the day, it could be 2025 or 2045, whatever it is. If that's ultimately where we're going, that makes a lot more sense to me than just this sort of call it in the ring year by year. No one knows where we're going. We're driving through thick fog and hoping for the best version of college athletics that we seem to have right now.
No doubt. Wrapping things up with Josh Pate. Josh, we started off the show. I was just kind of thinking in my mind on the calendar, and one of the sports that I do cover and am passionate about, as well as football and basketball, is college baseball. And the conference tournaments are about to begin in earnest here in a week or two. And it got me to thinking that will basically wrap up year one of this most recent massive realignment, right? Stanford, Cal, SMU in the ACC, Southern Cal, and Washington and Oregon in the Big Ten, and of course the Arizona schools in the Big 12. And I was just looking at it, and geographically, it's still it's weird. It doesn't exactly fit. But I don't know. I just don't think people are really making a big deal about it anymore. I think people have just kind of accepted this is the new normal, and nothing's going to change about it. Is there any kind of overlaying thoughts that you have with the new normal that is geographic misconduct in some ways, malpractice in a lot of ways, but everybody's adjusting and everybody's working through it, and even sports that don't have nearly as much money as football, they're flying over to these conference tournaments and they're making the best they can out of the situation.
Yeah, I think a couple of things there. So while the public conscious may be getting settled as the new normal there, I think there's a world where, Mike, like if I were to take an ice cube out of my freezer over here and I were to put it on the countertop, it's a fact that that ice cube is melting, but it's not going to melt in the next 3 minutes, but it will eventually be a puddle of water. So I do wonder, even if people have just accepted it as the new norm, do the long-term effects ultimately not still have detrimental impact on the sport, especially the non-revenue sports? And that's before we even start to mention what could happen if they go the employment model and whatnot. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think the public, and a lot of the feedback I get reflects this, they've kind of accepted that they don't like it, but there's really nothing we can do about it right now. On one hand, there's never been more money because the audience has never been bigger, thus providing that huge financial pool that all of this exists on the surface of. And yet the thanks that you've been given is your voice has never been heard less than it is right now, which is just that classic detachment from reality that those who have been put in charge tend to have across various walks of life, this just being one of them. And the third thing is, if you don't like the way things are right now, it's kind of like your grandma used to tell you about weather in the South. If you don't like it now, give it 10 minutes, it'll change. Well, that's been the case in college athletics for a while. So I think the hope right now is, okay, if I don't like it right now, hey, recent history has told me whatever this is won't be this way for long. Now, the slippery part is it could get worse. But also, who knows, man? I've got Nick Saban hanging out with the president. I've got Tommy Tuberville on Air Force One. I've got all sorts of different voices coming in that used to not seem to care about college athletics. Maybe a sledgehammer gets taken to it all, and I don't even know what that means, but I'm just going to go to bed every night, say my prayers, and cross my fingers. That's kind of the attitude right now.
College football Armageddon. You heard it first here from Josh Pate. Okay, I lied. One last question. If I were to ask you teams, look, we're all going to pick for the most part, the same teams contending for the prize. We all can come up with a dark horse list, and that'll be great summer fodder. Give me players you're most excited about seeing in 2025. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting quarterbacks. Not all of them are in the usual suspect places. Not all of them are in the traditional powers. But maybe some of the teams players Josh Pate is looking forward to seeing and covering the most this fall.
Francis Mauigoa, the tackle down at Miami, but the other tackle whose name escapes me at the moment, Bell, maybe. He is a JUCO player from somewhere in Mississippi. And many stars have once been referred to as a JUCO player from somewhere in Mississippi.
Yes.
And Shurburtt very well knows. I go down there and watch them practice last year. Mario says, come here for a second. Look. He says, tell me what you see. And I'm looking and I'm saying 70. That's who I see. He's running with the twos late in the season last year. He said, that right there is our left tackle next year. And he's like 6'9", 360 at the time, just monstrous human being. And Alex Mirabal, who is the O-line coach at Miami, is like 5'6" on a good day. He's just grabbing these dudes by the face mask. You've never seen a bigger dichotomy in the human physique than his players versus him. And they all, yes, sir, no, sir. I'd look at him. I'd look at Jeff Brom getting his hands on Miller Moss.
Yes.
And what he can do with him at quarterback. I think most of the world has forgotten that Haynes King is back for another year at Georgia Tech. That, to me, is the sleeper team out of every team in America. I think Georgia Tech would be a sleeper playoff contender this year. I seriously believe that.
Okay.
They get Clemson at home in week 3. They get Georgia at home late in the year. They went to 14 overtimes with them in Athens last year. If they split those two, it's a very manageable schedule for them the rest of the way. So I'd go all of them, and really excited to see what Le'Veon Moss does if he's healthy all year at tailback again for A&M. Mm-hmm. I think I could go a million hours on this topic right now, but those are some of the ones, along with obviously like Mateer coming to Oklahoma. If his receiver Burks, if he's healthy all year, what that hookup could look like. There's a lot of unknown across the landscape at the quarterback position, which means there's a lot of potential volatility among those traditional favorites.
Yeah, I mean, and the traditional favorites, I mean, like we talked about Jeremiah Smith, wideout Ohio State. It's ridiculous how talented he is and what he could do. I think of quarterbacks in the SEC. I think of like a Fab Four right off the top, and that's not even including a guy you mentioned in Mateer, who also has a chance to be special. But, I think of Nussmeier, Sellers, Lagway. I'm leaving one off the list off the top of my head.
Arch Manning.
Of course, yeah. The most obvious one.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of that guy.
Never heard of that guy.
Is he related to Peyton and Archie? Never heard of him. I mean, those four alone are going to be like must-see TV when they're playing. And of course, you have talented quarterbacks other places. You've got a Klubnik at Clemson. You've got guys out there. But it's still a quarterback sport in so many ways, and we've got some special ones this year. This past draft. Oh, all right. I lied again. I'm just going to keep lying, Josh. One last question, and then we'll let you get to that ice cube that's probably just about melted. You watched the NFL draft, right?
Yep.
What was your takeaway? I'm obsessed with the draft. Yeah. I have a problem. I've been watching it every year since about 1990. When I was still in like grade school. I watch every pick. The Herschel Walker trade sparked my interest many years ago, and I watched Jimmy Johnson manipulate it as nobody ever has so well. Yes, he had some misses, but man, did he hit, and that helped build that dynasty. And obviously, if you're a college football fan, I think we all love playing fantasy GM and projecting how guys are going to go to the next level. What was your take, besides watching Shedeur Sanders get passed over 157 times or whatever it was? What was your takeaway?
All right, so I got a few answers for you. The first one is, can you not see a year from now us watching the draft and people talking about Arch Manning like they've just discovered that he is related to Peyton and Eli? Can you not see an entire expose done where they're almost saying, did you know? Did you know this?
It's happening. It's happening.
Because they start watching college football. A lot of those guys start watching college football like 15 days before the draft starts. So
Yes.
they're learning all these things that we've known for a long time.
Right.
I thought it was just a sledgehammer to the face, Mike, that 26 of 32 first-round picks were from the Big Ten or the SEC.
I use that number.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that went back to the conversation we were having a second ago. I also thought from the recruiting rankings standpoint, backdating the rankings of those players, compared to the draft, I thought the industry as a whole did about as good a job as it could have done at projecting the future. And I've always had a difference of opinion. Like if I were to run my own recruiting rankings, I never would project the NFL draft. I would just project him as a college player because I wouldn't try and even call myself projecting it could 4 years, 5 years down the road. But that's not the way 24/7 and On3 do it, and that's okay. But I thought, given the way they do it, they validated themselves really well. And then I also thought it was a reminder, going back to sort of the Shador thing, but also the Quinn Ewers aspect and many other guys.
Seventh round.
It was a reminder of how the NFL drafts backups. And the logic there, the conventional thinking would be, all right, if you're not a starter, go in the first round. If you're a backup, maybe you'll go in the second or third round. That's not the way that league drafts the quarterback position. If you're not first round, for a lot of them, you fall to sixth or seventh round because that's the value they put on drafting a backup.
Yeah. Very true. It's and like you said, and this goes back to the J.C. Shurburts of the world and the Luganvilles and everybody else, the evaluation is better than it's ever been. It's never going to be an exact science, but it is better than it's ever been in terms of guys coming out of high school. I mean, if you watch an NFL draft and you're a recruitnik from high, you're going to recognize a lot of 4- and 5-star guys. That part is becoming a little bit more precise, I guess you could say. Josh, you are always precise. Tell everybody how they can catch you here in the coming weeks.
Josh Pate's College Football Show. That's the name of it. Simple as can possibly be. And it's on, I'd say, just about every platform you consume your content on. So it shouldn't be hard to find. Do
you fly to Lauderdale to do that?
No, do it right out of Nashville. I could walk to work if I want.
Oh, okay.
I saw when I was in Nashville in November, I saw his new studio. They were just now getting it done. So he's got he's got a nice
good digs.
Nice digs there.
It's ideal. Just walk back and forth, and not even people talk about Nashville traffic, and I don't even know. I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no idea.
Hey, congratulations in order. Your future lovely bride.
I appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah.
Got to sandwich that thing in between football seasons. That's the thing. Yeah. When you're scheduling a wedding and you can't do it in the fall and you don't want to take it all the way to next year, you've got to do it, not too far after you've proposed, which of course leads to pregnancy rumors. And I don't particularly care what other people think. So I haven't gone out of my way to shoot the rumors down. So half the people are saying, hey, congrats and congrats. And I'm like,
oh my God.
I get the first one. What's the second one? And then, but they want you to confirm it. And there's nothing to confirm. But
they haven't been listening to you. I mean, I was going to say, if you end up with a fall wedding, dude, I'm just going to walk away.
I would have had to retire. I would have fly the fly
too.
Mast. I'm out of here.
I've been the one nut job that's right there with you in all instances. I mean, I tell my friend, I guess I technically got married during bowl season. But South Carolina wasn't in a bowl, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. Plus, I'm told they're meaningless now. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the Orange Bowl was on that night, about 20 minutes from where I got hitched, but it was it wasn't much of a game. So so that was good. But yeah,
don't conflict with the GoweryFurniture.com bowl, or is that not a thing anymore? That's right. That's been gone for 15 years.
And I never would. Never would I do such a thing.
No, not at all. Josh, thank you so much, man. Keep up the great work. We always love you taking a visit to our program, and I know our audience does as well. So we appreciate that, and we wish you a great off season. We'll talk to you again soon.
I appreciate it, guys.
You got it.
Thanks,
Josh Pate joining us on loan from CBS HQ, Pate State, and a number of other things, 24/7 that he's involved with in his never-ending coverage of college football. Our never-ending coverage of this show will continue after a quick timeout. More JC and Morgan on the other side.
Low on energy? Struggling with inflammation and poor digestion? Try Encapsulate 6 Mushroom Blend and get back in the game. Our blend is specially formulated to promote overall wellness and maximize health benefits using 6 powerful functional mushrooms. Our science-forward approach offers the most potent and bioavailable mushroom supplement on the market, backed by third-party testing to ensure safety and efficacy. Order online on Amazon or encapsulateusa.com today to start your journey to better living. Enter promo code JCM for $10 off.
Mike here for our friends at MG&A Wealth. It's never a bad time to have someone on your side for all your financial needs. You need a trustworthy partner who has a true understanding of your situation in order to help you with smart and practical solutions. Since 1984, MG&A Wealth has helped their clients manage not just their wealth, but their lives. Today, as a nationally recognized wealth management firm, their team of pros remains dedicated to serving your best interests with an emphasis on personal attention and customized solutions. MG&A Wealth has clients all across the country, and they all get results. Don't put it off any longer. Call our friends at MG&A Wealth at 954-289-9000. That's 954-289-9000. MGAwealth.com is the website. They do more than manage wealth. They help manage lives.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable. Because this movement is just beginning.
This is JC Morgan on the Chief Sports Network.
College football. Forever.
All right, wrapping things up on another installment of JC and Morgan, powered by Advocare, advocare.com. Again, promo code Mike Morgan gives you 20% off on anything you order, and they've got just about everything you could want to order. Again, our thanks to Josh Pate for joining us. One other hard news story that came through, that is on Michigan. Sharon Moore suspended. This should be, I think, the final chapter to the saga, the Connor Stallion saga. He deleted text messages. This just in, when the feds want you, you can delete your phone. They still are good. It's still up there in the cloud somewhere. They don't play. They'll get the text messages and they'll see what's on there. But from what it seems like, there's nothing that's overly incriminating. But you did. What do you think? You tell me.
Yeah, no, nothing. It's stupid, really. I mean,
yeah,
you've got half the sport getting paid directly from boosters and going way over whatever cap. You got front-loaded deals. You got average basketball players making $3 million. Who cares about text message? Well, what pissed them off was COVID, and I think because they were doing some of this during COVID, right? Who cares? I mean, half that stuff they did for COVID ended up being ridiculously stupid and wrong anyway. I don't know why they're so butthurt about it. If you're not going to punish Michigan for stealing signals and having Connor Stallions do in-person scouting, and you're still going to give them the national championship, and you're still going to let them participate knowing this had happened, I don't really feel like there's anything else that should be done. If you want to. And I think what Michigan's doing is they got him suspended for like the right games, and just in case the NCAA accepts that, because they're not playing. I mean, they're not the games that they do. They may not even need a head coach to win those games.
They're letting him coach week 2 against Oklahoma, which happens to be his alma mater, and happens to be a game that, who knows, could be a losable game, a challenging game.
Down there, yeah.
Yeah, so they're basically, what Michigan is proposing is no, just suspend them against Central Michigan and Nebraska, which Nebraska is certainly a challenging game too. But I'm glad when this whole thing is put to bed. As you pointed out, if you were going to do something, you had your time to do it. The national championship has come and gone. Jim Harbaugh, you can give him a show cause. Who cares? He's not coming back to college football.
He doesn't give a flip.
He doesn't give a flip about that. So, once again, the NCAA overall feckless, but trying to show some might, some power in all of this. Any closing thoughts, Mr. Shurb Nation?
No, that was a good. I think Josh said a lot, and that was all. It's always good to have him on for the reasons I outlined, and looking forward to a big summer of following all this stuff. I hope that we'll probably get to this next show, but the House settlement still is out there. Now you've got. I don't think there needs to be an executive order issued about this stuff. I think those can be easily challenged and overturned. They're not laws. They're more like regulations. I don't know what kind of area. I mean, I don't think Tommy Tuberville needs to be the person anybody goes to for this, number one. He wants to just go back to the old days, like he used to do at Auburn. And that's not going to – nobody's going for them. That's not going to happen. Number two, I think if the United States government is going to do something, they need to do it through Congress. That's who makes the laws in our country, because if you change administrations in 4 years, we're going to be right back at the same spot.
Right.
Because another, as we saw with the last administration, they want Title IX to be a part of. They want all, it's apples and, two different interpretations of what this should be. So no offense to President Trump or anybody else that wants to help politically, but Congress needs to get off their ass for a change and pass something. It should be bipartisan and easy to do. And I don't, because I've said this before, the House settlement, Mike, these are not pro athletes. They're not. For an on-the-job training program that you could enter straight out of high school and make six figures right off the bat, plus get the endless amount of benefits, health insurance, free education, room and board, nutritionists, professional strength coaches that will develop your body physically, tutoring, academic support, all the stuff you need to be a success in life. There's nothing else like it in our country. And make six figures with a chance to get to 7 if you prove yourself, right? There's nothing like that. Is the sweetest deal on earth. I don't know why we can't just say that's a sweet deal. Let's do it. Because you're not going to find that in any other on-the-job training program in the country. Any lawyers, I said this earlier today, doctors are in debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars to medical school. They don't get paid a bunch to do their apprenticeship. No, they get a little bit. So I just don't get it, man. I'm like, some of these people out here, more money for players. They need to really wake up and this is a great deal. Take it while you can, because the next step, in my opinion, is the NCAA saying, all right, we're just going back to how it used to be. This is voluntary. If you're good enough to go pro, and let the NFL and UFL figure it out, see how much money you make there.
Yeah. If you read the quotes from the lawyer on the other that's fighting for this, I don't know if you saw the quote. So Nick Saban is obviously a pretty decent person to get some insight on all this about how to regulate it, how to run it properly. And Nick has never been anti-compensation. That's always the weak argument on the other side. Oh, you're just anti. No, I haven't talked to a coach yet that was anti. But you have to have some structure. You have to have some guardrails. It's common sense. It's how any other business operates. And the attorney, I didn't realize this. It's the same attorney, JC. This guy is a whale. I mean, he goes back to like big tobacco. He forced cigarette companies to pay out millions and millions of dollars. So he's like, well, I don't really need Nick Saban's opinion on a system that operated so guys like him could profit and the players couldn't profit. That's what you're going up against. That's the kind of guy on the other side.
Let's be real about this, though. Do again, on-the-job training. Every profession in our society, you start somewhere. Most of these guys, Nick Saban included, started off. Nick Saban was a graduate assistant while Miss Terry, I believe, she had to graduate from college making $6 an hour or whatever it was at Kent State. That's where he proved himself. And then he went up and moved up and moved up. He worked for Jerry Glanville with the Houston Oilers as the defensive backs coach. That's got to be an experience, right? He worked his way up to make this kind of money. That's what you do in our country. That's part of it. These are not, again, they're not pro athletes. This is not if they do away with the eligibility calendar, and then we have 30-year-olds playing college sports. And that's when I'm probably going to walk away and go to the beach or go do something else. This is still on the job training for professional sports.
Right.
It's not professional sports. It's on the job training. There's not another training program that's going to not only enrich you in intangible ways, like with the benefits package, but with cash as well, if you're good enough. It's a meritocracy. And it really, the starting money, yeah, sure, I'm not going to pay an offensive tackle out of high school $3.75 million a year. But most of them are getting a couple $100,000, which is a hell of a lot more than anybody, including Nick Saban, had when he was in college, and really more than like what will be one of the best, probably name your best heart surgeon in America in 10 years. They're not in college making bank. They have to prove themselves.
Right.
There's no other situation that's on the job training in our country that sets up as well as revenue sports and really non-revenue as well, because women's basketball players make more at most programs than they will in the WNBA.
That's right. And, oh, by the way, Shedeur Sanders, who was the talk of the draft for a myriad of reasons, he's going to be taking a massive pay cut as a fifth rounder in the NFL compared to what he was making at Colorado. It's not a bad deal. That's why you see a lot of kids in football and basketball trying to stay and get extra years of eligibility, because even if they make a pro roster, a lot of these guys are making more money in college than they are in the pro. No other universe does that happen.
And it sets, it gives them a nice, you can't possibly, I'm sure some can, but you can't. I know how much I spent in college. I know that was 20 something years ago, but basing it on I see how much my stepsons spend. They're teenagers. You spend, but you're not, it's hard to go through that much money in college. And if you do, you're a dumb idiot. You're an idiot. You didn't do the right thing. It's not, that's enough money to set. Even your guys that are reserves, Mike, are going to have enough to put a down payment down on a house, right. All that. And with all the talk about student loans, student loans, this student loan, that there's a whole swath of our society that doesn't believe that money should ever be paid back. Okay. Well, these guys don't have to go into any kind of debt either.
No.
There is a list of 10 things, benefits on before we get to the six-figure salary that these guys are getting free of charge as major college revenue sport producing athletes. So to me, I'm like, hey, this is a great deal. You should take it and be happy with it. It's not like anybody's nickel and diming anybody here. Yeah. That is a superb deal that enriches really a whole generation. People use that word generational all the time. This is a generational game changer for wealth as far as college athletes go that earned it. And so that's all I got to say about that.
I can't remember the economist who said it, but it's words I remember as true today as it was before. To go to your point, he used to say, it's not how much you take in, it's how much you take home. In other words, if I have no expenses, all of a sudden that money that I'm bringing in is worth a lot more than the average person who's got to pay a mortgage, rent, pay for all my meals, pay for all my classes, it's just common sense stuff. I do think that 20.5 number, it's already going to escalate as the TV money continues to grow. Who knows, JC, when you and I are doing this show 10 years from now, God willing, we're all healthy and able and still able to put this together. 20.5 might be 30.5. I could see a world where that does happen, but I think it's certainly at a point now where if you're just going to continually fight and say that the student athlete is a victim, it's starting to fall on deaf ears as people learn what these guys are making. Real quick, Kenny Hart. Kenny says, going back to college football forever, the anthem. Burt Bacharach kind of vibes. Talking about you, JC. Queen of Cox says JC's the Chris Christopherson of music writing. Get him his Grammy. Xavier says, I was watching Pate back in the Columbus Super Chat days. These are all on Chat Row. And by the way, I mean, for the thousands of you that can't listen to this live, I know you can't participate, but we do love the people that do. Micah, man, I got to tell you, I don't know who your battle is with. I'm not your problem. I work in TV. I don't control TV. So don't blame the messenger. Everything that I've told you was going to happen with college football has happened. So when you say something like, I think JC and Pate understand you can't silence the fans and keep them from being interested, that will eventually lose money. What you're in effect saying is I don't get it, which you're 100% wrong on. I understand all of that. And this is not the world that I designed. This is not my utopia. If you've been listening to this show, then you know that I've been talking about I'd love to see the sport have geographic balance. I want to see all conferences healthy. I want to see a Group 5 playoff. I want to see all these things come into play. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. The SEC and the Big Ten are clearly on a collision course to dominate the sport. You look at the NFL draft, you look at the teams that are going in the playoff. That's just the reality. Again, I don't make the rules. I just tell you it's going to happen years before it actually does. And that's what I've been doing on this show for years. And if you've been listening, then everybody's learned a lot listening to myself and JC and the guests we have, because I dare say we're on the forefront of what this sport looks like. And with that, JC, I think it's a good time to say goodbye.
Yeah, when you said that, I'm kicking myself for not tweeting when Gary Barnett basically told us Colorado was going back to the Big 12
on this show
3 months before it happened.
3 months before anybody had it. Yes.
Who?
Yes. So we don't
stirred it up, man.
Yeah, we could have. I mean, look, we don't pump our chests the loudest on this show, but we certainly, if you listen to it, hopefully you know that we bring a little bit of knowledge and credibility to it. We all come from different aspects of it, but the one thing we all have in common, every one of us, all our guests, everybody on Chat Row, and yes, Micah, we all have a passion for it. We all want it to stay healthy and be at its healthiest. And for all its flaws, as I always say, we're coming back, man. I get it. Like, some people are turned off by a lot of things in the sport. And yeah, some people will finally say no. I know people that just simply can't afford tickets anymore. I feel for those people because I know their routine of going to 6-7 Saturday home games a year, they've been priced out. Unfortunately, that's the case in all sports. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't like it. But if you want to get tickets, for example, to the national championship game, that's an elitist ticket. There's a lot of those people that are there are not even fans of either school. It's like a Super Bowl. They're corporate people, right? I mean, they're people that want to be at a big event. But anyway, we appreciate all the passion on Chat Row and everybody else tuning in. JC, if they haven't already tuned in, what do you think? How do they get to this point?
You can go. Everybody needs to subscribe to. There's a second YouTube channel. We broadcast on 2 YouTube channels now. At College Football Forever Chief. There's about 6,000 subscribers so far, so you can join your closest college football nuts and subscribe to that. Also, all over the podcasting platform. Usually takes about 24 hours after the live version to get up. Maybe we can find a fix for that, but I have to talk to Mad Dog about that. But so that's up on everywhere from iHeart to Audible, where if you listen to audiobooks like I do, I'm a nerd. Really, Fall of Saigon 50th anniversary was last week, Mike, and I know. Are
you watching the doc on Netflix?
Yeah, we both
I thought of you. I knew you
the
were
Vietnam War,
yes.
dude. That's been my kind of go-to lately.
Oh man,
all kinds of books and stuff. But we're on Audible as well, and iHeart, Google Play, Apple, anywhere you find college football podcast, and be sure to check it out. The JC and Morgan podcast on YouTube on at College Football Forever Chief.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks to Mad Dog. I know you guys got another show coming up here in about 15 as part of the burgeoning Chief Sports Network. For JC and for Phil, Mike saying so long. We'll see you next week on another installment of JC and Morgan.